Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll just wait a minute just for folks to be able to join us from the lobby. Awesome. I think I will go ahead and get us started, and I think folks will just continue to trickle in as they are able to. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marone Melican, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer here at the Office of Cannabis Management. And we just want to welcome you to the Lower-Potency Hemp Edible application process webinar. I am here alongside a number of my colleagues that are here in the background that'll be tracking the questions that you guys submit throughout the presentation, as well as just listening alongside. I am also here with my colleague Jason Little, our regulatory project manager, who will provide a walkthrough of the Acela licensing portal a bit later in the presentation. And so we are looking forward to just being able to walk through this process with you. So to get us started, I will walk us through a general agenda for today's session. We'll begin with providing an overview about OCM and Chapter 342, the licensing framework for the hemp-derived cannabis or the hemp-derived industry. We will provide an overview of hemp licenses types that are available and the differences between the three license types. We will provide guidance for the hemp business application process, including application common mistakes. And we will review some of the pre-submitted questions that you guys sent over to us. I do want to flag just right now that on our OCM webpage, specifically under our FAQs, we already have a number of FAQs or Q&As loaded onto the website. And so if we don't go over your question that you submitted for this webinar, it may already be on that website. And so I just want to name that, especially because we want to continue populating that. And so if folks send questions in the Q&A chat today as well, we'll be looking over those after this webinar, and then we'll be using those to continue to load our FAQ section of the OCM webpage. And so really encourage you guys to continue to send questions that you have to us, and continue to just let us know what still seems unclear. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. So to ground us, I just want to acknowledge the OCM mission and vision. The mission, vision, and values were established by staff here at OCM as we built out our office. Our mission being to foster an equitable cannabis industry that prioritizes public health and safety, consumer confidence, and market integrity. We also have a list of what we call our circle of values, which is really items that we lean into as we continue to engage with folks and as we continue to build out this market. Those being anything from collaboration to integrity, ensuring that we're being responsive, the community, acknowledging the community that we're working with, and continuing to build within that space, learning from folks such as you all today, and being able to learn from things that might still seem unclear from our guidance, and empowerment. And so just naming those as some of our grounding principles here at the office. So a little bit about the Office of Cannabis Management. OCM is charged with developing and implementing the operational and regulatory systems to oversee the adult use cannabis industry, the medical cannabis program, and the consumer hemp derived cannabinoid industry. We are also essentially charged with launching an effective, safe, equitable, and sustained cannabis industry. Part of the role of the Office of Cannabis Management is the release of applications, issuance of licenses, and essentially developing regulations outlining how and when businesses can participate in the cannabis and hemp derived industries in Minnesota. So a little bit just about the establishment of a regulatory framework here in Minnesota. As originally passed by the legislature in May of 2023, H-File 100, or what we oftentimes refer to as Chapter 342, set out a regulated dual cannabis hemp supply chain with substantial statutory overlap, including cannabis and hemp businesses would be required to apply for and obtain license from OCM. Different activities require different licenses and or endorsements from OCM. Cannabis and hemp products would be required to be tested by a testing facility. Cannabis and hemp products would be required to follow specific labeling and packaging rules. Chapter 342 requires different regulations for hemp businesses than the temporary regulations established under Section 151.72 once licensure begins. OCM worked with the legislature in 2024 to create hemp business conversion, allowing current hemp registrants ability to operate current businesses while hemp license application is pending. So I'm just going to name some of the key differences from temporary regulations and licensing requirements. Again, definitely not an exhaustive list, but just wanting to acknowledge some of the differences and some of the shift from moving from chapter 1 or section 151.72 to moving over to the LPHE licensing requirements in chapter 342. So when looking at some of our temporary regulations, some of those included businesses selling hemp-derived products are required to register with OCM, no requirement for businesses manufacturing hemp-derived products to register, no application or license fees, no local government approval, license, or registration required. And registered businesses may sell hemp-derived cannabinoid products defined differently than lower potency hemp edible products, which includes products like vapes, etc. And so now as we shift to the LPHE licensing requirements that are outlined in Chapter 342, you'll see businesses manufacturing, selling, wholesaling, delivering, transporting, or otherwise engaging with hemp-derived products are required to apply for and obtain a cannabis or LPHE license from OCM and must have a physical location in Minnesota. The state law sets application and license fees in Chapter 342. All LPHE license holders are required to comply with local zoning and building code regulations. LPHE businesses may only sell lower potency hemp edible products as defined in law and in rules. And LPHE retailer businesses are required to obtain a local retail registration in addition to licensure. And so this is essentially just trying to name that there are differences in being and shifting from the temporary regulations to being an official licensee under Chapter 342. So in preparation of LPHE licensing, so while conducting the cannabis business, while conducting the cannabis business licensing window, the OCM previewed and prepared for the licensing window and hemp market conversion by a number of different items. One of those being posting rules, final rules draft for public comment on January 13th, 2025, and publishing the final adoption of rules, including our new technical testing standards earlier in the spring on April 14th. We also launched the Hemp Registrant to License Holder Conversion Guide and Hemp Business in Minnesota, a guide for lower potency hemp edible license applicants on May 9th. We reopened the registration for hemp-derived cannabinoid businesses on May 27th. We posted the product transition period on July 2nd. We posted the packaging and labeling guide on August 8th. And we launched additional licensing support documents on September 19th. So this is just kind of naming the number of resources that are available, as well as just some of the things that we did to help kind of ease the process and provide various levels of guidance in leading into this licensing window. So now I just want to talk a little bit about our timeline for LPHE licensing. So as mentioned in the previous slide, we talked about just the different things that have taken place, such as on April 14th, the rules adopted and published, including the requirements for testing, packaging, and product categories. In May, we released hemp business guides, including conversion guide, and that is at that time is when we also announced our October licensing window. August 31st, our registration window closed for retailers of hemp-derived cannabinoid products, or HDCPs. On October 1st is when the lower potency hemp edible licensing began. And so that is when the window began for folks to be able to apply for the LPHE retailer, LPHE manufacturer, and the LPHE wholesaler licenses. And right now, as you can see, we're kind of right about a week into that licensing window. And lastly, on October 31st, that is when our lower potency hemp edible licensing window closes. And one thing I just want to note is that that window will close on October 31st at 12 p.m. noon. And so we just want folks to make sure that they're prepared, especially it's always great if you apply sooner rather than later. But if you are choosing to apply a bit later or on that October 31st date, that window does close at noon. And so just make sure to get your guidance documents in earlier so that you're not running up right against the clock on that last day to be able to submit. So now I'm going to walk us through a license overview where we'll take a look at the 3 license types available for lower potency hemp edible businesses. Under the temporary regulations in section 151.72, there is not a licensing framework and activities are not restricted by license type. However, under chapter 342, as passed by the legislature in 2023, the licensing framework requires businesses to obtain a specific license to manufacture and sell lower potency hemp-derived products. We will discuss the license types and their allowable activities, cover the licenses that can be held simultaneously, walk through endorsements, and take a look at some of the key differences between the license types. There are similarities to the cannabis licensing structure, but also many differences. So please refer to our office's hemp business guides and chapter 342 to ensure that you have a full understanding. So to get us started, I just want to acknowledge a few key terms that we'll hear throughout the presentation in your guidance documents and throughout the application process. Those terms being license, endorsement, and lower potency hemp edible. Oftentimes you'll hear us say lower potency hemp edible or LPHE interchangeably. And so just wanting to name that, and I'm just going to allow you guys a little bit of time just to read over these key terms before we proceed. These key terms also can be found in all of our guidance documents as well. And so if you want to dig into them a little bit more later. I also want to name that this webinar will be posted on our OCM YouTube page, and it'll be linked on our website. And so if you ever want to look back at any of these definitions, you'll be able to go back there and check it out as well. Okay, so I wanted to walk you through just a few key points as it relates to lower potency hemp edible licenses. As you've likely been tracking, Chapter 342 establishes the 3 license types for hemp business activity. The first being lower potency hemp edible retailers, or what we oftentimes call LPHER. Lower potency hemp edible manufacturer, or LPHEM, as well as the lower potency hemp edible wholesaler, or LPHEW. I do want to acknowledge that the lower potency hemp edible wholesaler was a new license type established in the 2025 legislative session. All 3 license types have endorsements available. For example, a business can obtain a LPHE retailer license with a delivery endorsement to deliver lower potency hemp edible products directly to consumers. Licenses can also operate, licenses can also operate multiple sites under the same license. Each site, however, must be registered and approved by OCM. So now I want to just kind of walk through a little bit about holding simultaneous licenses. So additional licenses that can be held by a LPHE license holder include an industrial hemp license under Minnesota statutes, Chapter 18K, other licenses to prepare or sell food, other licenses to sell tobacco, or tobacco-related devices, electronic devices, nicotine and lobelia delivery devices, and other licenses to manufacture or sell alcoholic beverages. One thing to note is that pursuant to Minnesota statutes section 342.43, LPHE license holders are not allowed to hold any type of cannabis business license. Now we'll just go a little bit more into detail about the LPHE products. LPHE products must meet one of the following categories: intended to be consumed or eaten as is, ready to drink beverage, or defined as a tincture under Minnesota rule. Any LPHE product that does not meet one of the categories above is prohibited. This prohibition includes previously permitted items under Section 151.72, such as intermediate food products, flour, powders, tablet or powdered drink enhancers, any product requiring an additional step before consumption, and Delta 8. A formal petition process to request the approval of additional product types will be available through the Office of Cannabis Management in 2026. So now let's get into who can manufacture and sell. So lower potency hemp edible manufacturers may produce artificially derived cannabinoids, hemp concentrate, and lower potency hemp edibles. Lower potency hemp edible retailers may sell only lower potency hemp edibles. In addition to holding the appropriate license, LPHE manufacturers handling certain types of hemp products will need to obtain an edible cannabinoid product handler endorsement from OCM. A separate endorsement is also required to produce hemp concentrate. Manufacturing and retailing hemp-derived consumer products is limited to only cannabis business license holders, not LPHE license holders. So we've also put together a table that walks through various hemp retail approved product types. On the table, you will see a list of hemp product types, whether they have an approved product category, and whether there is a license allowed to sell retail. I'll leave some time for you to be able to review this page. This webinar, of course, will also be online, so you'll be able to take a look at this and review on your own type. But I'll just kind of look over an example being the hemp flower below 0.3% THC. The approved product category is the hemp-derived consumer product, and the licenses allowed to sell retail is cannabis businesses only. Whereas if you take a look at the second one, it says infused hemp flower, and it says that it's not allowed. So there's not an approved product category. And it also states that in terms of licenses allowed to sell retail, there are none for the infused hemp flower. So again, you'll be able to take a look at this on your own time as well, as this webinar will be online, so you can be able to review on your own time as well. So now we will transition over to the lower potency hemp edible retailer license and just kind of go over essentially what it is and what it allows to do. So the LPHE retailer are allowed to sell lower potency hemp edibles to consumers who are 21 years of age or older and transport and deliver LPHEs with applicable endorsements and consistent with the requirements outlined in statute and in Minnesota rules. An important item to note is that Chapter 342 requires that before completing a sale, including delivery of any regulated product, the business completing the sale or delivery must verify that the customer is at least 21 years of age and is not visibly intoxicated. So for LPHE retailer licenses, the endorsements available include a retail endorsement, which authorizes a business to operate a retail location and sell LPHEs to consumers. They must also obtain local retail registration. The on-site consumption endorsement, which authorizes a business to operate a retail location and offer on-site consumption. And lastly, the delivery endorsement, which authorizes a business to deliver LPHE products directly to customers. It does not require a physical retail location if not paired with the retail endorsement. Additional licensing requirements are applicable, such as general liability insurance. One item to note is that to have LPHE products delivered, an LPHE retailer must obtain a delivery endorsement for their retail license to work with different LPHE license holders. Sorry. To have a LPHE products delivered, LPHE retailer must obtain a delivery endorsement for their retail license, or they can work with a different LPHE retail license holder with a delivery endorsement. So next up is our lower potency hemp manufacturer license. So the LPHEM are allowed to purchase hemp concentrate, hemp plant parts, and hemp propagules. They are allowed to manufacture LPHEs, hemp concentrate, and artificially derived cannabinoid with applicable endorsements. And they are allowed to transport and sell LPHEs, hemp concentrate, and artificially derived cannabinoids to licensed businesses consistent with the requirements outlined in statute and in Minnesota rules. The endorsements available for the LPHE manufacturer license include the edible cannabinoid product handler endorsement, which is required to manufacture, process, sell, handle, or store LPHEs unless the LPHE is in its final packaging. The second endorsement available is the lower potency hemp extraction and concentration endorsement, which is required to manufacture hemp concentrate or artificially derived cannabinoid products. All methods of extraction, concentration, and conversion, and all volatile chemicals intended to be used must be disclosed to OCM. The LPHE manufacturer businesses performing extraction or concentration of cannabinoids or conversion of artificially derived cannabinoids must obtain third-party certifications from an independent industrial hygienist or a professional engineer. And the last one here is the lower potency hemp product hemp product exporter endorsement. That was a mouthful. And this one is available to LPHE manufacturers and LPHE wholesaler license holders and is required if the license holder intends to manufacture or purchase, store, transport, or sell products containing cannabinoids that do not qualify as LPHE products and are intended for sale outside of Minnesota. So again, I know that a lot of this it's a lot of text, it's a lot of helpful information. This is all provided in our guidance documents as well as you'll have a copy of this once it's transcribed and put on our YouTube page for you to be able to review. So finally, our last license type is our lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license. So, the lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license permits the license holder to purchase LPHEs from licensed businesses and sell them to other licensed businesses, import and export LPHEs with the applicable endorsement, transport LPHEs with applicable endorsement, and export products containing cannabinoids that do not qualify as LPHEs consistent with the requirements outlined in statute and in Minnesota rules with applicable endorsement. And now the endorsements that are available for the lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license include the lower potency hemp edible importer endorsement. And this one is required for a lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license holder intending to import LPHEs that are manufactured outside of the state with the intent to resell the products. This endorsement is only available to LPHE wholesaler license holders and cannabis wholesaler license holders. The second endorsement is the transporter endorsement, and this is required for lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license holders intending to transport LPHE products to other businesses. It requires the applicant to submit additional application materials as well. And the last one being the lower potency hemp product exporter endorsement. And this is available to lower potency hemp edible manufacturers and lower potency hemp edible wholesaler license holders, and is required if the license holder intends to manufacture or purchase, store, transport, or sell products containing cannabinoids that do not qualify as LPHE products and are intended for sale outside of Minnesota. So one of the last items I wanted to cover is our license overview. And the costs, including the application and license fees per each license type. The license types have an application fee, initial license fee, and annual renewal license fee. Application fees, initial licensing fees, and renewal licensing fees are non-refundable per Minnesota statutes 342.11. Another item to note is that the local retail registration also requires an application and registration fee for the local governments. And so I just want folks to be able to take a look here. Again, this is also on our website and in our guidance documents, but really acknowledging the different fees associated for the various license types and how some of them specifically address there being a fee per location, especially as we are looking at our lower potency hemp edible retailers. All right, so now we are going to transition over to our hemp LPHE business licensing process. So we have put together what we call a from start to license your path to lower potency hemp licensing in Minnesota. This is essentially a guide that really I encourage everybody to print out, especially if they are in the application process for one of the LPHE licenses. It essentially allows you to see what stage you're in the application or the licensing process, starting from the moment that you are preparing and you are completing your application to your application fee payment, the application review process, the license fee payment, all the way to license issuance and eventually you becoming an official license holder. This is just a helpful tool just to kind of see where you're at throughout the process, ensure that you are linked to the right resources, and that you are able to just essentially track where you are as you embark on this journey of getting licensed through the state. On the screen, you will also find the LPHE business operations timeline, which can also be found on the OCM website. And again, I think this is just a helpful tool for really all folks that are either already in the industry and are converting or essentially applying for a license, or folks that are getting into it for the first time. Essentially, it really talks a bit about the application timeline, as well as what is the best way to say this? The application timeline, as well as just kind of what that conversion looks like for folks that are hemp registrants right now and that are essentially applying for a license for the first time compared to folks that are touching this for the first time and are officially applying for a license now. So now we are actually going to pivot over and I'm going to hand the baton over to my colleague, Jason Little, who will talk a bit more about business application guidance and some of our common mistakes to avoid and items to consider.
Hi folks, I'm Jason Little, a regulatory project manager here at OCM, and today I'll guide you through step-by-step instructions for signing into the OCM licensing system and applying for a lower potency hemp edible license. But first, I'll share with you some common mistakes to avoid and items to consider while completing your application. A common mistake by applicants in our experience thus far is skipping fields or not providing detailed information. Most fields in our license applications are required by Minnesota statutes or are needed in order for us to fully review and grant licenses. Please complete every field and, when able, provide as detailed responses as possible. This will help our licensing and enforcement team quickly review your application and move you through each stage in the licensing process. Failure to complete sections may result in requests for more information that delay your application or even license denial. A good rule of thumb, provide too much information instead of too little. We require all LPHE applicants to provide the following documents: a valid photo ID. If there are more than one owner associated with the application, we just need the photo ID of one of them. And I'm going to pull control from you, Marone, because I have a slightly updated version of the presentation. There we go. Next, proof of your trade name registration from the Minnesota Secretary of State. And if you're applying for an LPHE manufacturer license, we'll require an attestation of a labor peace agreement. We don't need to see the actual LPA at this time, simply an attestation signed by a bona fide labor organization that you have entered into such an agreement. All three of these documents are easy to make sure you have before you begin your application. And as you register the sites at which you'll conduct licensed business activities, you'll also need to upload a completed site security and operations final plan of record along with each site registration. We'll talk more about that document shortly. Our last common mistake is failing to register all related sites in one application. For example, if you're applying for a retail license and you have 5 retail locations, you will need to register 5 locations with your one LPHE retailer application. Our license application system allows you to register up to 99 sites per license. In the case you have more than 99 sites, just contact us and we can provide you with further instructions. And remember, if you plan to engage in multiple business activities, such as selling to individual consumers as well as wholesaling to other businesses, you will need to apply for both an LPHE retail and an LPHE wholesaler license. You can learn more about which license types to apply for in the guidance on our website. Now let's hop in and take a look at the application process. This is the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management Licensing System, also called ACELA. If you've not already registered for an account, you'll want to start there. After you've completed the account registration process, sign in and select Create an Application. Then read and accept the terms and select Continue Application. On the next screen, under Select a Record Type, click License Applications and choose the license type for which you'd like to apply. For the purpose of this demonstration, I've selected Lower-Potency Hemp Edible Retailer. Remember, license applications must be completed and submitted to OCM by noon on October 31st. On the following screen, you'll be asked if you are social equity verified. Please note the office is not issuing social equity licenses, social equity classified licenses for hemp businesses. While you have the ability to make that selection in the application system, that selection will not result in the specific social equity license. If you select social equity in the process, that will create a system requirement to upload documentation of verification. So we strongly recommend that you do not select social equity application, as that will complicate the application process. Next, you'll add information for 3 contact types: applicant, authorized agent, and business owner. Remember, you must add every business owner, regardless of what percentage or how many shares they may own of the business. And none of these owners are allowed to also own a business in Minnesota with a cannabis license or that is in the process of applying for a cannabis license. In this application, I've included my business partner, my dad, John. Surprise, Dad. Hopefully your business partners are more aware of your arrangements. Next, you'll enter your business information. This is important as it will help us and the Minnesota Department of Revenue help you stay compliant with tax laws. So make sure you get those numbers correct with your tax ID or FEIN. Finally, you'll let us know the total number of sites from which you'll be conducting business activities permitted by this license type. And take note, if you have a retail operation with multiple locations, plus a warehouse that will store LPHE products, you may need to also apply for a wholesaler license. Visit our LPHE resources page on our website or contact us directly to make sure you're applying for the right LPHE license type. Now it's time to start uploading those documents. As I mentioned before, you'll need to upload one applicant photo ID, your proof of trade name registration from the Minnesota Secretary of State, and if you're applying for an LPHE manufacturer license, that attestation of a labor peace agreement signed by a bona fide labor organization. Next, you'll carefully read and acknowledge compliance with each of these statements. Our enforcement team will validate many of these items later in the licensing process and/or during your time as an LPHE license holder. So it's very important to read through each of those and acknowledge that you accept those. After checking these boxes, you'll select Save and Continue Application. This will take you to a summary of your license application for your review. If you approve that, select Moving On, and now it's time to register each site. This helps OCM's enforcement team know where licensed activity will be occurring and how to reach staff at each site. As I mentioned before, you must create a separate site registration for every location in which your business will conduct regulated activities. You'll also let us know what local unit of government is responsible for zoning and for local retail registrations of any retail sites. You may need to review property tax statements, a property deed, or your county's property database to get this information. You'll also be prompted to provide your hemp registration number. If you've been previously registered with OCM as a hemp business, you'll have that 4-digit number. If you are not registered, simply enter 0000. Now, let's talk about requirements related to local governments a little bit more. Unlike with cannabis licenses, there's no allowed cap that local units of government can impose on the number of LPHE retail license. And OCM is not required to notify those units of government, such as cities, counties, or townships. It's incumbent on the license applicant to work with your local government to apply for a local retail registration for retail sites and ensure you're in compliance with zoning and other regulations in your local unit of government. We strongly advise contacting with them as soon as possible to prevent any halt to your business activities. On the next screen, follow the link to complete your site security and operations final plan of record. This form will collect a variety of information depending on the type of license you're applying for, as well as the endorsements and business activities you plan to engage in. It could include relevant sections such as how you safely store products, ensure your customers are over 21, your plans for transporting or delivering products, your exporting or importing procedures, security and training plans, proof of applicable insurance, or what products you plan to manufacture. As I mentioned before, be sure to complete every field requested with as much detail as possible. This will help our licensing and enforcement teams process your license application faster and avoid the need for OCM to request more information or potentially deny your license application. When you complete this form, you'll be emailed a PDF of the document. Return to this page to upload that document. You will need to complete this for each site you register. Once you've done that, pay your application fee, and we'll take it from there. Be sure to watch your email and your junk folders for any requests for information or information from OCM. Requests for more information and other communications usually have deadlines that, if not met, could result in license denial. Remember, we're excited to help make this process as smooth as possible and have created materials to help you every step of the way. Simply visit our website at mn.gov/OCM and select LPA business licenses from the top banner or other resources available throughout the licensing window, which will end on Halloween, October 31st at noon. Now I'll turn it back to Marone and our outreach team.
I encourage you to please email cannabis.info@state.mn.us with your questions. The team that's online right now, some of our other subject matter experts here at OCM are reviewing those and will be able to turn around and get you responses. So we want to be responsive. We want to be able to support you guys through this process. We recognize that it is a transition for those that were already in the industry, and it is quite new for those that are entering it for the first time. And so really want to thank you guys for taking the time to meet with us today and to sit through this presentation. This presentation will be transcribed and then put on the OCM YouTube page. And so we will make sure that it gets up there, and we'll try our best to continue to communicate to you all as soon as it goes live. If you haven't already, ensure that you are signed up for the OCM newsletter, as that's likely a space where we will be sure to also publish this YouTube video as soon as it goes live as well. Again, thank you guys all for taking the time, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you.